Guys, so if you watched this video earlier in the week, I did make some adjustments to it on Wednesday, April 1st around 11:42 a.m. The reason why I made some adjustments is because there's two things I wanted to change with this, and rather than completely redo it and like do a separate screencast, I thought it would just be easier to redo the original screencast, so then all the expectations, all the directions are on one place, and you don't have to go back to multiple different places to figure out what you're supposed to do. One of the things I changed with this is I changed the word project to journal. I think the use of the word project kind of scared some of you, made you nervous. This is a poetry journal, okay? So the purpose of this is to explain the poetry journal expectations. This is to be completed on Google Slides. The first slide should be poetry journal, your name and class period. The second slide should be a list of poems in the order you wrote them, and it should be in the same order as mine in the list below. And then the third through eighth slide should be slide should be dedicated to each of the poems that you write. So I did add a personification poem. If you are somebody that read this or listened to this, I should say, before, I added that one personification poem. It's nothing too crazy. I just was looking back at what you guys were doing, and I was thinking, well, you guys already read a couple examples of personification poems. It makes sense for me to add this to the assignment as well, because you already saw examples of it. This also gives you a template for your own poetry journal, and the due date for this is to be announced, but will be communicated once it's decided, because pacing wise, I'm still trying to figure everything out, making sure everything works for you guys at home. So the expectations for this journal is to be completed on Google Slides. As I said before, you're going to use this screencast as guidance for the project directions and expectations. Do not do all these poems at once. They will be chunked to be due on different days and weeks. So poetry journal, again, I changed it from project. I think the word project was too intimidating. So saying journal makes it a lot easier. So these are the poems. Again, you are writing 6 different poems. The first poem is a haiku poem. Haiku poems are 3-line formed of Japanese poetry. It often centers around nature and the natural things. The pattern for the haiku is the following. So it's line 1 means 5 syllables. You can clap those out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And then the second line is 7 syllables, which again, you can clap out those syllables. And then the third line matches the first line of being 5 syllables. So this first example down here says banana. Let's check the syllables. It says green when it's not ripe. Okay. I see 5 syllables in that first line. The second line says don't eat them when they're squishy. 7 syllables, so still matching the pattern. And going down to the last line, it says monkey's favorite choice. So 5 syllables. So this is a proper haiku because it matches those syllable patterns. A limerick. Limerick are funny poems that contain 5 lines. They have very distinctive rhythm and rhythm pattern. The rhyme scheme is AABBA. What this means is that the first line, the second line, and the fifth line rhyme with one another. So as you see over here, first line, second line, fifth line. All the A represents is that all those lines rhyme. That's it. The third and fourth line rhymes with each other, and these lines are shorter in length than the other 3 lines. So if you look at this rhyme scheme, we know it has 5 lines. We know this is the first line, second line. So we see the third and fourth line are both represented by the letter B, which means that they rhyme. And the first line almost always begins with there once was a. So the examples down here, you guys can read through them, but the biggest thing with a limerick is making sure that the lines are rhyming and following that specific pattern. So personification, this is the one that I decided to add. I actually took away probably about 4 of the poems that you were supposed to write originally. And then looking back at it, personification poems, they're fun. They are poems that like we're already doing in class, so it didn't make really much sense for me to take this one away. But so now you are doing this one. So your poem should be a minimum of 8 lines. Your personification should be included throughout the poem, not just in a line or 2. As I see that typo, I will fix that after the screencast. Personification uses a rhyme scheme of either A, A, B, B, C, C, D, D, or A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D. Do not get intimidated by the letters. The letters just represent which lines rhyme with one another. So this example was one that I think at this point when I shared this, you will be reading this poem next week. But it says, is the moon tired? She looks so pale. Okay, that rhymes with line 3, which is also represented by A, within her misty veil. The second line, she scales the sky from east to west, and takes no rest. Those both rhyme. So that's following this pattern. All right. And then we notice over here follows the same thing. Line C rhymes with the other line C, and D rhymes with D. All right, ballads, they are stories told in poetic forms. Ballads stem from sad events much of the time. They are stories told from beginning to end. Sometimes a lesson is told in the last phrase. Try to choose a story to tell which has quite a lot of emotion in it. Your ballad poetry should be in the A, B, C, B pattern, and it should be between 8 and 12 lines. So, if you notice, this is talking about the Challenger, which the Challenger was the spacecraft that pretty much just blew up when people were aboard it, and it was a huge tragedy at the time. I personally was not alive for when this happened, so I do not remember it. But I think it would be interesting if you guys write about your experience now, living through what's going on with the coronavirus in the world. I think it might be interesting. So the first 4 lines, you tell when, what, where. And then the middle lines, you continue the story. So then you just kind of add more detail about what's going on. And then the last is you finish with a thoughtful ending. So the biggest thing with a ballad is that you're not only telling a story, but you're also having to tell or not tell a story and use the rhyme scheme. Sorry, I have landscapers outside that are being a little loud, so I'm sorry if you hear that. But anyways, that's a ballad. Feeling poems. This one's a little bit easier than a ballad. I think ballads are one of the more challenging ones, and that might be one that we do a little bit later. But a feelings poem, it's a total of 6 lines. The first line is the name of the feeling. The second line describes the colors that describe the feeling. The third line describes when the feeling happens. The fourth line tells and describes what the feeling sounds like. The fifth line tells and describes what the feeling feels like to you. And the sixth line repeats the name of the feeling. So pretty much that is a guidance for you. Okay. Look back at this. I decided to do this entire screencast at once because I kind of figured that you guys can go through and you can pause at different points of the video or find what poem you need to hear an explanation about. So that's why it's all in one place. But go back to this. I also included the Google Doc, or the Google slide, I should say, of this that you can also look at your own pace. Lastly, we have free verse. Free verse simply flows. It does not have a particular pattern, unlike some of the other poems. It may have some rhyming phrases or none at all. However, it always expresses idea or story or an impression in a rhythmic form. So it means that although it doesn't follow a pattern, it may rhyme. Free verse depends much on careful word choice or phrases, and your free verse should be at least 8 lines long. So there's 2 examples of free verse over here that you can look at. And then how this is going to be graded is each poem is just worth 10 points. It's a total of 60 points. What I'm looking for is that you're following the directions, you're using the Google Slides to do so. And I will probably be putting out a screencast of how to copy this and make your own. So if you have any questions about this, please feel free to email me at any point. Go back to this video, pause on the poems that you want to hear an explanation about. And if you have any questions, just let me know.